Um, I think just to,
I've got
just to,
an agenda, the minutes, and the survey draft. I don't have any slides.
we're going to work on the survey draft quickly. We just talked, the only thing we talked about briefly was the board of directors meeting last night, and Colette thought it went well. You were there, Josh. I'd love your comments in a second. It was basically was an update that was included with what we sent out in this packet. I give myself a 7 out of 10. As you know, not Josh, I was concerned about speaking in front of in a microphone. I'm just not used to doing that. I mean, I am when I have teleprompters in front of me, but my eyes are bad, and a lot of times I can't see the slides in sector. Anyway, I give myself a 7 out of 10. It was the first time I ever did it. The uncomfortable part was just being behind a microphone, I think, and I couldn't move around. Colette thought it went well, was well received. I thought, there really wasn't many comments. There was one minor comment from Joe Reynolds on IP addresses, but we're not going to worry about that right now. I think that was a summary of that's what we talked about so far. Josh, any take from your side?
No, I think it went well. I think you met Joe Reynolds, which is an important step in Ocean Pines.
Good.
Can somebody move that front chair out of the way, please?
Yes, I remember last time. Yeah, I was blocking. That's right. Gotcha.
Thank you.
So maybe for Becky's, sort of knowledge, why don't we just introduce ourselves quickly? I'm Bernie. I'm the co-chair. I got engaged. The committee just really took off in December and January under Mo's leadership. And my background is in food marketing, mostly Kraft, Hershey, Campbell Soup, and then Purdue Farms. Did a lot of planning, but never for a home. And actually, I've worked with nonprofits a lot, but never for a homeowners association. But we're applying similar processes. That's who I am. I live in the Pines. I've been here for 14 years. There's Wes. How you doing, Wes? We'll go down the road here.
Hi, I'm Helen Johnson, and I've been here for 3 years, full-time now, and I'm a retired nurse. I work for the Department of Veterans Affairs, and I did mostly administrative, and I did some work for our VISN, which is a conglomeration of 3 hospitals, and we did some strategic planning, so I had a little bit of background, but enjoy life in Ocean Pines, and nice to meet you.
And I'm Colette Horn. I'm the board liaison. In the first year of my second term on the board. I don't know, I should shoot myself for having done that. Anyway, so I'm a retired psychologist, and I've been down here full-time since just before COVID, actually September before COVID. And we've had property here for 10 years now. So welcome to the committee, and thank you for serving.
Good. I am Mo Delcher, the other co-chair, retired vice president from Mercy Medical Center in Baltimore. We've had a house down here for about 15 years, but actually just been down here myself full-time in the past 4 years.
Becky, good morning. Rob Kiesling here. I am a semi-retired, spent 29 years in the telecom business, most of it 24 with AT&T, always in corporate sales management. So that's my background. I retired a couple of years ago. Now my semi-retired gig is commercial real estate. Been associated with the Pines since 92. My parents retired here in 92 and kind of sort of semi-raised my kids here. They were always part of Camp Ocean Pines and things of that nature. They left in 07. I took ownership of their home, which I still own and rent out. And yes, I do have a license to rent my home full time. I have a home on the Parkway. My significant other and I are not quite full-time yet, but we're here about 75% of the time. She still has connections and work back in the Baltimore area, but love it down here and glad to be a part of this organization and help the community grow.
Wes, can you hear us, and do you want to introduce yourself quick?
Yeah, I can hear you and see you very well. That's a pretty good system. Yeah, I'm Wes Blakesley. I'm retired. I was the head of the office at Johns Hopkins University that commercialized all the inventions made by the university. And now I still do consulting and legal work in that same arena, regarding, commercialization of early stage intellectual property and complex business arrangements.
I like your background. Looks like you're sitting on your deck right now.
Exactly.
Yes, I wish I were. I wish I were. I'm
Going
sitting.
out there.
I'm sitting in my house in Carroll County because my wife, who works for Carroll Community College, they've gone back to in person now, and so she had to go to work today.
So I got to figure out how to do that background stuff.
Yeah, create your own. Josh?
Josh Davis, I'm the Public Relations Director for Ocean Pines. I've been here for about 2 years, and I was previously the news editor of the Bayside Gazette.
And Helen, you want to tell us, or Becky, tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so wow, a lot of connections here. My aunt and uncle have lived in Ocean Pines for years, and that's how my husband and I became aware of the area. And we've been coming to Ocean City for over 38 years with our family, vacationing. And Jim and I decided that we really wanted to retire here. So 3 years ago, we bought up on Carriage Lane and have been working toward that result and just actually moved this week. So I'm in an office that's functioning, but I'll tell you, it has a lot of boxes in here. We had friends visit last evening, and we went out to the yacht club for dinner, and they were for their annual beach vacation, and the compliments that we received regarding Ocean Pines were outstanding. They said, we had no idea this existed. We had no idea this community was so big. We had no idea it was so well planned and all the amenities that were here. And we get a lot of those compliments when we do have people visit. So I'm really happy that we have such a resource in this area to use and enjoy. Morale, my first job was at Mercy Hospital. I was hired as a staff nurse on the service floor. And from there, I went to St. Joseph's and worked a regular med-surg floor and cardiac intensive care for 8 years. I was a dialysis nurse for several years. And then I moved into public health, got my master's at Maryland and my doctorate at Maryland as well. I recently retired from 27 years at Baltimore County Public Schools. So I'm very interested in seeing how we can, work public health wellness into what we're doing overall in the community, because I think there are several factors here that Jim and I looked at as a retirement community contributed to our well-being. And one of those certainly right now is safety. Community safety was very important to us. And connections to healthcare services, I know, is evolving here. And that's something that we can continue to market and advertise. So I just thought the strategic committee would be a fun place for me to be. I have done a lot of COVID preparation at school as a result of what we've been through. I've served on several education committees throughout my career, and I'm really looking forward to contribute. I'm sorry I've been sort of out of it lately. I moved my parents into a retirement home this spring, and I've moved 3 houses, and I've worked, and so, but I'm here.
Well, welcome.
Welcome. Yeah.
That's a good jumping off point as far as it's much better developing a strategic plan or a long range plan when things are going well. And in the 13 or 14 years I've been here, it's probably the best position I think that Ocean Pines has been financially and some of the great amenities. And I've recently experienced a lot of, I actually golfed yesterday. The golf course is in great shape and clubhouse is beautiful, and had my grandkids here recently and experienced almost every pool in every park there is. So took advantage of the place, which I don't normally do. But anyway, welcome. The second thing is just funny, a lot of medical expertise here. And all I could say is my mother wanted me to be a doctor, and I never did become a doctor. And the last thing she said to me before she died, she said, I was tucking her in at the hospital. She said, "You would have made a good doctor." I majored in biochem, and then I went on to be to get a business degree and a master's. But anyway, so the board meeting last week, the other takeaway I had, which I think is important to share, is just you hear so much in the papers and social media, but I was impressed and maybe I didn't understand, maybe there's still some minor issues, but I was impressed with the professionalism and how the board got along and just, it just was a very positive experience last night for me. So that was my takeaway. It was the first time I did it. And it was good to really get them engaged. I'm sure you'll be reading stuff in the papers, and I recognize everybody on the committee and kind of what we're doing. But I also shared, and you can look at the slides, actually Josh, one of these days I'll learn how to do Microsoft Teams better, but pull the board presentation up and go to about the third slide. And then we'll jump off into the survey.
You're looking at
So
this
this
one?
one here, yeah, this one. So I mean, there's probably 30 reasons to do a strategic plan. And I talked about a few other ones on the bottom, but the first headline was align the board of directors and management on what basically what priorities should be. Align, and then once you do that, aligning the management team under that, or so aligning the staff, making sure that budgeting and activities are going to line up to how does that fit to the strategic plan. And then it just communicates clarity. And I use the example of it gives you permission to say no. Basically, the homeowner survey said we shouldn't invest in new amenities, but we're going to improve the current. So, I mean, it really gives you kind of clear direction in budgeting and everything else. And then again, with the work that Helen has done, agreement on core beliefs and principles. So the values work that Helen put together and we're going to include, I think is a huge plus forward. I did take a look at, when our next meeting, I'll tell you, I mean, I think it's on the agenda, but we'll probably take a look at the mission and vision. And maybe even something that Jenny wanted to bring up, which was value proposition. Why do people live in the Pines and how do we protect that? And by the way, there's 2 or 3 other people that aren't here. Becky, and that's Jenny Cropper-Ryan, who had a death in the family, who's very involved and has been involved led the communications committee for a while. Andy Davis, who has not been able to attend this time. And then, Gary Miller is new to the committee, has not been to a meeting yet, but has been on many other committees and just happens to be on vacation today, but looks forward to being involved. So that gets you up to speed. But from what I wanted to do today, and it's going to be tedious, is while we're all here together in person, go through the survey a second time. So Josh, if you want to, we're going to come back to that presentation for the next part, but this is a little bit tedious. But again, I put this out and then I don't look at it again. But I try to incorporate, I did incorporate almost everybody's feedback, and there was some plus or minuses. We'll get into asking the male, female. I think we're split 50-50 on including gender at the end, but we'll get to that in a minute. So take a look at the first paragraph and see if we want to wordsmith it at all.
If they check F, does that end the survey on a monkey?
No.
So because I was trying to think who would get the survey that didn't either own property or live in Ocean Pines.
What I've learned is it's always good to include an other just to capture something you haven't thought about. Like,
no, I like having.
I'm a business owner and I got the survey, but I don't live there.
Okay.
I'm an employee, but I don't live there, and so it's always good to have an other when there's a possibility that you haven't thought about something.
And how would they get the survey? I know we had talked about leaving.
Well, if you like, just say we do a PR.
It's not just going to be emailed.
It's going to be in the press, and they're going to say, here's the link. So people from Ocean City could fill it out if they want to.
Okay.
Yep.
But we'll know who they are if they're other, and we could extract that from any data.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Or we can look at it. The question is, do we use, and the other one, I think Rob brought it up, the previous survey, if you look at, let's finish other.
Yeah, well, weren't we talking about the first paragraph? Wasn't that your question?
The first paragraph. Are we good with the first paragraph?
I'm good with that.
That's fine.
We're going to test this too, by the way. we're gonna test it amongst ourselves, and we're gonna test it maybe with somebody who has no idea what we're doing, to see if it's clear to them. And, anyway, so that's good. So, on F, to your point, Wes, do we use the word other or not? And this was my question to myself, kind of like, should I use, because there was some feedback, whether we should include that, what the wording should be. And I think, Becky, you provided some good feedback. Just make it clear and simple. I do not live or own property in Ocean Pines. Should I eliminate the word other, or should I just leave other in there? Because it could be an,
Because they could have an other reason.
yes, yeah,
So I would kind of agree, just say,
other.
I do not, no,
I do not,
I don't know.
Yeah, it really doesn't matter if they're employees or
yeah.
business owners or.
So is it okay as is?
Officials, whoever. I would say I shouldn't even weigh in.
No, yes, you
No.
know.
But, I agree with you that we should, just keep it sweet and simple.
To take other out.
Just leave out excise the word other.
Yeah.
Okay, so others gone. By the way, we did get approval, thanks to Colette. We have SurveyMonkey purchased. And I could start loading this into SurveyMonkey as soon as I get, and I probably will do it pretty quickly because we have companies starting to come. It's a company time of year, so I'll probably get this done pretty quickly. And again, when you get on SurveyMonkey, it actually helps you word the things a little bit better, or, provide the scales. It actually it's almost like,
It's a nice tool.
yeah. So it actually improves things. So typically in a survey, you do some easy warm-up questions. So people like, oh, yeah, okay, and it's pretty easy to say how satisfied you are from a 1 to 5. So again, on the wording here on number 2, we okay with that? I did change everything to a 1 to 5 basis. I actually did review this with somebody that I worked with before that has a master's in marketing research, and incorporated some of that feedback as well, so.
Can I ask a really quick question about number 1? We used the word budgeting in the first paragraph. So is the long range plan really to guide the budgeting process, or is the long range plan helping to guide decision-making processes over the next 3 to 5 years? So because I think, so I'm offering that as a thought. And I definitely agree that we take out other, because the guidelines were that we don't have another because it would be really hard to operationalize that and get those results. And so I think the F thing, taking that out, was good. But is budgeting the right word there? Is that the goal of this committee?
Decision making's fine. I mean, to me, it's maybe,
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
We're going back to the first paragraph.
First paragraph.
Yeah,
decision making instead of budgeting.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah, it's a good one, Becky.
Yeah, because that way it takes, you leave budgeting in there and some people are going to get completely turned
Yeah,
off.
right, yeah.
Say decision making.
It's a more consumer friendly word.
And all encompassing.
Yeah, good question. I did meet Steve Phillips for the first time last night and talked to him briefly after the meeting. He goes, oh yeah, he goes, I've been involved before where, all your departments have to align up with the strategic plan. So he sort of gets it and he understands what the value is. So I'm not sure it's, we're not going to say, we have a 4.3 million budget, but it will help prioritize what should be in there.
Well, it does impact the budget if there are priorities for things that are like new capital spends, that type of thing. We may need to, it might impact what we collect in reserves. We don't collect directly for the new capital spends, but if there are major upgrades or, whatever to amenities, that, but it is indirect. So I think, Becky, your recommendation is spot on.
Thank you, Becky. I am not married to any of these words. This is general committee. If we get to a point where we'll take a vote in this meeting if we want to include something or not, like gender or something like that. So this is why we're doing this, and it's painful, but it's important. I could look at the second, we're gonna move to the second question. We took out the word other for F. So on the second question, and I'm hoping you all have you can see Josh is there too, but, I can modify this and start the sentence like, how satisfied you are being an Ocean Pines property owner or resident, on the scale of 1 to 5. And so I could just flip and as I look at this, I could flip that.
Yeah,
But also-
I would do that just to be direct for every question. Start it the same way and then use the scale at the end of every question,
Yeah,
just to
Yeah.
keep it.
yeah, if you look at question 3, yeah.
Yep,
Now, will the Survey Monkey have the descriptors?
yes, that's what's great about
Number?
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what's great.
So you may not even.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that's good.
It'll be a range and, it will have all up there at the headlines and you just click it, Yeah, so it's a little bit less. You don't have to list it like this. Yeah, you're right. Okay, we'll make that change. I don't want to rush through this, but we have 12 questions to get through, I think. As a property owner resident, I'll let you read the third one. And let me just say that this is kind of like, trying to think what the proper market research word is, but it basically tells you what's most important to residents. And then the next question is, how are we doing against this? And you're able to look at what's most important and then how they rate it and look at, wow, safety's important. We're doing really good on safety. That's great. You know what? Drainage is really, or basically safer, or whatever it might be, is really important. We're not doing so well. That's an area of focus that we need to go forward. So that the next two questions allow you to do that.
And Bernie, how did you choose the order of these?
It will be randomized on, Survey Monkey will randomize it.
The A through
Yes, yeah,
P?
yes,
Okay,
yeah. Is that?
because it almost kind of pulls
Yeah.
for the things that one would
Yes.
think are most
Yeah,
matter. And the concern would be that people would say, okay, those 3 are it. I don't
Yeah.
need to read the rest.
Josh, the reason I wanted the package is, that we bought was just for phone assistance in case we have trouble, like figuring out how to, randomize that, we could call somebody and it's like a help desk to help us. A lot of this was taken off the SWATs that were done on strengths. Some of it was it was basically on strengths. Look at the wording of each, make sure I got it. I try to incorporate everything everybody said, but I might have missed it. I'd actually had a file of all your comments, but I forgot to bring them.
Number 4, I would suggest that we underline 2 words there, currently performing,
Okay.
to emphasize that.
In number 3, do you need P?
This is an important question. Thank you for bringing it up, Becky. The last survey, there was a lot of great work in there. But when you look at the results, and I didn't send them out, Jenny shared them with me, and we might have looked at them before in this committee, but in the previous survey, they included other, and they didn't think through, like a question might have been, how do you get your communication? Bayside Gazette, Courier, email, online, or other. And there would have been 50 others that now all of a sudden the majority were in other, and it was all over the place. So you want to think of other doesn't have to be included each time. Other's good, like we used for the first question, when there might be some people that get this, that fill it out, and we want to be able to separate that. But I don't want other to be something where we get 300 responses to, because you can't tabulate it. I mean, it's a bunch of words.
I would take it out because I think consistency, I think you're really opening a can of worms there. If you wanted to strengthen A through O, you could define them more specifically. For example, when you're talking about safety, What do you mean by that? Do you mean public safety? Do you mean street safety? Amenities, do you want to define that? Do you want to define those individual prompts more appropriately? And then, as being familiar with SurveyMonkey, you can require responses, so that if someone picks their top 5 and doesn't want to answer the rest, SurveyMonkey can be chosen so that they have to answer.
Right.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that prevents that from happening.
I'm on the other side of that. I like the idea of the other in there, just because you're right. You might get 50 or 60 different answers, and it won't be meaningful. But you might get 50 or 60 answers, and 20 of them are basically the same thing, and that would be interesting to know that there's something important besides that list that we happened to put on there. So in this case, I think the worst that can happen is you get a bunch of other answers that go in. Don't forget they're going to have to. I think that what Becky is suggesting is making it such that people have to click on A to O. So you'll get your significant data, and then you
Yeah.
might get something. You might get something useful out of the P. Might not be useful, but that's the worst that can happen is you get 50 different answers of other things. But I would guess that there might be some uh, that there might be some enough similar answers to give us some other thing that people look at that we haven't selected. And I don't know how SurveyMonkey works or how it can be customized, but that one is ideal for, you don't have to do anything to the P if you don't fill in the blank. But if you fill in the blank, then the thing comes up and says, now put the 1 to 5 in.
And I think, and I could be wrong, but I think SurveyMonkey, you can limit the number of characters.
Yes.
Yes.
So
Yeah,
they're not going
that
to
would
they're not
be
going to write they're not going to write a novel.
No.
And Bernie,
We hope.
Yeah.
I want to make a comment on the safety issue. I think Becky brings up a good point. Safety, this is the safest
Yeah.
community in the state and possibly the country. A controversy that is revisited from time to time is whether we should invest in our own police force or let the county take it over. And that has huge economic impact on our budget to consider that. The other issue is, do we continue to invest in our own police force and EMT? And it may, I'll tell you, when we moved here, one of the top influencers was the fact that we had our own police force, we had our own fire department.
Yeah.
We did not use the amenities, we used the water, whatever. But I think you may want to consider having our own police force, having our own fire and EMT, and then maybe general public safety as another item. Simply because the board, I think, is, every year we have to make decisions about how best to invest in our police force, which is a huge challenge because recruitment of new officers, retention of officers costs money. And then in the future, we will be making some decisions about the Southgate Fire Station. And, anything could be thrown up for consideration with respect to that. And those are two things that could really be big budget and long-range planning items for us.
She said own police force, own what?
Fire and
Fire
EMT
and EMS.
service. And we don't own them, but, having it right here in Ocean Pines.
So it would be Pines sponsored.
Yeah.
So you know what, again, I want it to be a committee decision. So on the topic of other, any other comments on that, whether included or not?
Keep it.
I think you should keep it. Yeah, I think.
Okay, Beck, you got
That's fine,
overruled
that's
there.
fine.
Yeah.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, actually, I thought about how would I answer that? And the one thing that I would put in there is the public use of the north side boat ramp, which is really for Ocean Pine residents, but clearly it's being used by the public. So that's what I would write in.
So going back to the safety comment, I think what I want to do is actually, there's later on in the thing where, how much do you agree with this statement?
Okay.
Ocean Pine should continue to invest in its own police force, safety and whatever, and have a level of agreement there versus.
And I would separate police,
Okay,
fire.
we could do that,
and EMT,
yeah.
Because different people are in favor of
Okay.
one than the other.
So we'll get it there as opposed to just safety being important,
Okay.
if that's okay. So we
Yeah.
capture it for sure.
I'm just giving you feedback from the board perspective.
Going back to the definitions, Becky, the only reason I'm not excited about that, because I'm tired today, I'm crabby, and I don't feel like writing a definition and everything. And how do you write the other thing is safety like a word like quality? How do you define quality? It's not an easy definition. So I don't know, I'm willing to do it if the committee wants to do it, and I probably would ask help from Josh to fill it in if he doesn't mind.
I would keep it simple.
Yeah, just leave it as is.
Leave it alone.
Simpler the better.
Yeah. One other thought is that a lot of the stuff that I read, and I think I've seen it on the Ocean Pines, website, that's not on this list, is access to medical care. We have a lot of retirees, and the idea that there's a hospital is close. Now we got the new medical center being built out front. I wonder whether that would be another thing to add to that list, because I would have probably put that in the other.
That is an excellent one, and I'm sorry I missed that. That's a really good one. And thank you for bringing that up, Wes. We will add that. So P, it might be, now we're down to Q.
Move it down.
And we're going
It's
to
kind of
do
interesting. I have
As
it down here.
a
in
plan-
questions 3 and 4.
AGH.
Is that
Affiliate.
access or?
In some fashion.
Just access to health.
Looking how large the complex over here is getting.
Healthcare.
But that's a good point. I mean, how do we
And
address it?
People still
You
go
know, how do
across
we,
the
I mean,
bridge
we're not going to,
for specialists.
we're not going to
That's a
provide
concern,
any
I think.
clinics in Ocean Pines.
Yeah.
You know,
And Mercy had
I mean,
Higher quality.
Mercy had a number of
I
doctors
understand. that. Yeah,
who actually come down
it is a
a day or so a month.
selling point for the community
but
because we
there's
do have it.
access to it, but it's not in our.
It's not something we can influence.
Is there a better way to word that, Wes?
But I was down here for like.
Well,
5
I
months.
think there's some feedback. Has anybody else be here in the feedback like somebody else is in another meeting?
No, it sounds like there's people talking at the end of the table and at the
Yeah.
top.
Yeah, those two folks at the end of the table having their own meeting.
We're out of control.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Good. I would have just used access to quality medical care. I mean, to me that means what it says. A lot of places that I've looked, one of the places we had a home at one time that we sold, one of the things we started to think about as we got older now was there really is no good medical care within 5 miles of the place or 10 miles of the place. So, the word I would use in my mind is access to, to quality medical care, or maybe availability. I think that we promote that as Ocean Pines is one of the strong points. You got the hospital right down the street, and Salisbury's not that far away, and I think that there is good medical care in the area. But that would be the term I would use. Access to quality medical care would be how I would word it. But maybe there's a better word. Easy access, maybe.
I might
Proximity,
access to healthcare.
How would
proximity.
Ocean Pines strategic plan impact that? That's independent of OPA. And so what would one think would come out of this survey that would inform the board about something we need to put into our strategic plan that would impact that? I think, think about that also.
That's a great point. And that comes down to, okay, so I'm moving here from Baltimore. I have a medical follow-up need. I have access to the healthcare, but I'm having trouble finding providers. And it's known that we have a provider deficit in this area in terms of specialists, or it's limited, but getting the information about this is difficult. So for me as an Ocean Pine resident, that communication between the healthcare facilities and Ocean Pines community is really important to me so that I can become an informed consumer. So it's really how can we connect and create those communication partnerships with those providers that informs our residents so that they can make good decisions going forward.
And so I guess what I would be hearing you say then is that this would not necessarily be a thing, an item that the strategic plan would deliver to the community, but it would be an initiative that might be very important to improve communication, maybe take a role in communication. Is that what you're saying, Becky?
Yes. So, but I would continue with the thought of access to healthcare, perhaps putting in a bullet that changes that to how important is quality of life or wellness to you, something like that. I don't like those words, but those words, but it's more important of how something related to health.
Yeah, and that could, again, I probably shouldn't even be talking, I'm the liaison here, but I'm going to talk anyway, that I think could inform the board about the fact that we need to consider both initiatives and tangibles in our strategic plan. And that question, I think, would maybe support amenity development, that kind of thing that would be a tangible that would impact health and wellness, but also may trigger consideration for initiatives that are more like communication based or public information based.
So what is?
Yeah, what is the
wording? What is this? Josh, yeah, I appreciate your weighing in.
I just said access to healthcare.
I think I would leave it like that.
I
Leave
think
it
what
open.
Becky suggested would be more useful to us as a board.
But Becky, go ahead, talk a little bit more. I was starting to get into healthy lifestyle, something.
So I actually wrote down a couple words. I'm thinking health and wellness programs and practices.
Mm-hmm.
Something
Health
like
and
that.
wellness. How about just health and wellness?
Well, I hope that sounds important to everybody.
But, and then how's Ocean Pines doing? Are we doing enough in that area?
Okay.
So
Okay.
is there a gap? Could we be
Okay.
doing more?
Could we do that?
Promoting, and again, when I looked at the villages, it's like they claim they're this healthy, whatever, promote healthy lifestyle and stuff like that. So
I like health and wellness.
health and wellness, we'll put that in there. That's a good one. So good talking through that. If that's okay, we'll move on.
Yeah.
The next one is values. I would ask Helen. I would tell the other thing is what's great about this committee and what's great about being on a committee is just the different perspectives. When I got the feedback from all of you, yes, there was a consensus on, 1 to 5, 1 to 10, but each of you sort of picked up on a couple different things. Each of you has strengths that ended up with where we are today. So I appreciate, Becky, you jumping in and bringing that up, and Wes promoting for the other and things like that. So it's all good. The next one is values, and it's pretty simple. And here's my thought on this. When I was in corporations and we were creating values for the company, we didn't ask the employees, we didn't ask the consumers, we basically made those decisions based on maybe some insights we had, based on research, based on where we saw the trends going, like, transparency or what's important to employees. But we didn't do a survey on those, you know, it was just, we made the decision, these are what the value should be for the company. So I'm on, it gets to other. And I think in the last meeting, we decided that we would have them prioritize the values that we recommend. And I have other in there and I'm happy to take it out. So that's just my background and leading up to the discussion on this one about whether we include an other or not. I think this is one where we can get a ton of responses on other. Anybody want to weigh in on that?
Isn't it valuable
I
if
mean-
you get a ton of similar responses on other?
That's what I'm thinking, if you had them in one word answer, in one word, you know, and I have a feeling, and it'd be interesting to see what they say, but I have a feeling it would be a lot of
Yeah,
things that would all fall into these.
I think you'll get transparency.
Yeah.
You might get
Well,
30
you'll get that,
transparencies.
you'll get-
Well, transparency is captured up in
Right.
another one.
Right.
Yeah.
So.
What I
you're-
thought, I'm sorry, what I thought when I saw these two questions was the previous question was, what's important to you? And then
Yeah.
the following question is, how are we doing on those things? So that both of those questions should be parallel. So they should have the same choices.
Exactly.
on-
Yeah,
on
we're,
both.
we're on number 5 now, Wes. They will be.
Can you drop the screen so we can see number
Yeah,
5?
I'm sorry. I was on 4 because it was on the screen.
Yeah.
You're right, Wes. Those will be extreme. They'll be exactly the same, except they'll be randomized. So you'll get,
Right.
it's exactly the same things. What's, you know, what's important and then how we doing. So, but we're on 5 now and it's just about values and unfortunately you couldn't attend the last meeting, but the decision we made was to, include these in the survey, but, not include like 10 of them. Like these are ones that we recommended. They incorporate a lot of things like transparency and integrity and a lot of different things in there. And Helen did an awesome job and it will be potentially her legacy in Ocean Pines. But that's besides the point. Which I would be happy if I had that legacy. But the question is the other, and I think the general, so far, we're saying, yeah, let's include other. We'll probably get words that line up with what's above. But it is the one that I saw has the most, not risk, but the most potential other responses.
So each one of these will be rated on a 1 to 5.
1 to 5, yeah.
We had a values program in the elementary school where I was, and each month, the children had a value. And it really was part of our community collectiveness that, we created in our school. And I'll throw out a couple to you where that you may or may not wish to add to your list. Helpfulness.
Hey, Becky.
Yeah.
Becky, unfortunately, we weren't at the last meeting. We made a decision not to include other ones.
Okay.
Helen
That's
did a
fine.
lot of work and we narrowed down about 25 into these 5, I think. And I don't mean to cut you off, but that's one of those action items. We made a decision not to include others. So I apologize.
No problem.
And then,
I don't mean to be rude.
Do we need other?
yeah, do we need another then?
That's my answer. And I'll do a majority vote. Doesn't matter to me.
I feel it'd be okay to put another, but like I said, I feel that we'd all come back with a lot of the words, with transparency and
And that's why I started with
honesty.
corporations don't ask their employees to vote on it. They make a strategic.
These are what they are.
Is what they are.
Well, maybe we should wait and see how they rank them. What if it turns out that, respect is a 0 or a 1? I mean, what difference will that make? I don't know.
Well, it might say that you incorporate these 4 and 1 really falls off, or something like that. You might get a little bit of that.
And
You get some sense of priority, I
I
think.
think you guys brought this up, thinking that you would create a value statement for
Yes.
Ocean Pines.
Yeah,
And so if something, I sure hope respect doesn't drop.
yeah, yeah.
I think we kind of made an executive.
We wanna keep that here.
Made an executive decision
Yeah.
for the community.
Yeah.
That these are what we would strive for.
Yes,
as a
yeah.
community.
So let's take a quick vote on including other or not. how do you do these? Like all in favor, aye or something, or?
Oh, sure.
All in favor, aye,
All in favor of scratching it or keeping
of
it?
keeping it? Anybody in favor?
Aye.
Yes,
So
yes.
2,
Two.
4 against, so we'll not do it. That's okay. Well, we're gonna scratch the word other.
Okay.
Again, it's majority rules, I guess. It's not Bernie rules or whatever. Please rate the urgency. So I took some of the weaknesses and some of the things that I saw from some of the SWATs and included some of these. Look at the wording, see if we're missing anything. And Josh, Ocean Pines Communications, it might have been brought up 1 or 2 times. I didn't want to get into digital and social and ranking all that stuff. It's just, how do you feel we're doing? I almost wanted to
As
ask.
long as that gets a 5, I'm great.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you might get some things that just, but there might be other things that I haven't thought of on this one. But this was taking about the ranking of the weaknesses, both mostly from the executive council and mostly from the staff.
What do you mean by D?
I didn't know the wording on this. It just came up as a statement, you know, and it wasn't
Yeah,
my
because the
statement.
board of directors doesn't work closely with the leadership. You know, we're the executive body and we support the leadership. So I'm not sure if you're wanting the board of directors to work together better with each other, which I think I've heard a lot. But I've also heard that the board of directors needs to keep their hands out of operations, which means
That's a great point.
that we don't work with the leadership of Ocean Pines directly.
I'm not married to any of this. It was just, it
So-
was taken directly from, you know, do we include something about alignment? You know, the board, I'm willing to put anything in or anything out. This is just taken directly from us. That's why we're having this conversation.
Do you think that was supposed to be board and GM working more closely together rather than Ocean Pines leadership?
I don't know.
Just a thought.
because-
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
know
'cause
either.
the board doesn't really work with the GM. The president communicates to the
That's
GM,
fair.
the board, wishes and feedback. But, we don't, by majority voting, we give direction to the GM. But it's a very formalized, kind of delineated process that doesn't involve a lot of, us just telling the GM what to do.
I guess I'm not married to any of this, and I'm gonna try to look up the SWATs, but I think and you've been really good at it, Colette, is, and I said the board seemed to get along so great the other day, but there's always, for 10 years I've lived here, it's issues with the board of directors.
Yeah, and
And I don't know how to capture that.
very valid, and I think that needs to be.
And I don't know what that wording is.
We had that with the last survey. That was a high
That's what I was gonna try to.
frequency item that people said they wanted the board to work together collaboratively.
And that, I mean,
That's a good word.
that's a good word. That's what I was looking for.
And collegially. And so however you word that.
So,
Yeah.
but with leadership or just board of directors?
Just
Board of directors.
Yeah, yeah.
And I think what we're hearing more recently from the community, there's this narrative that the board is meddling, and that's always a challenge, the board meddling in operations. And I don't know if that's always been something that people have complained about, that the board does that, but we're certainly hearing right now that the community is aware that that's a problem and they don't want that to happen. So I don't know if that belongs here, but I do believe that the board of directors working collegially and collaboratively, we heard loud and
Leave it at that,
clear in the last survey that belongs here. But it's up to you guys. I'm just giving you
I'm just
I
good at the
like
wording,
that one.
like, I don't know how to,
collaboratively.
collaboratively is good enough.
Collaborative. Is that other word you mentioned, I think,
Maybe not.
yeah,
I didn't know how to spell that, that's what.
yeah, a little.
It didn't flow as I read it.
You can go on word.
Maybe-
when when you misspell it.
Go ahead, Josh.
Maybe something more like respectfully, something closer to that.
I like collaborative.
I
I like collaborative.
Yeah. No, I like that too. I was thinking of a second word that captured what Colette was trying to say.
Yeah, I don't think we need a second word. I think
Okay.
the board is working collaboratively.
You know it's gonna come out, you know it's gonna be high. It was high in the last one, it's gonna come high again. And maybe it'll support some of the team building and some things that you've tried to do and things like that. But it's not a cost issue, it's more just, it needs to be addressed. And-
Well, I think what the board has wanted to convey to you guys is that the strategic plan is about tangibles, but it's also about initiatives. And it's not just buildings, infrastructure, amenities, it's, wellness initiative,
Yep.
values initiatives.
Okay, so we're gonna change that to board of directors working collaboratively. I'm glad we had the discussion. It was really just trying to, it was too long-winded anyway.
What do you mean by transparency? Transparency of what? Budgeting processes, finances? I mean, specifically, what are we talking about there?
I don't have a definition. This was just a word taken off of, some SWOTs that were done with transparency. And it was identified as a weakness. There's this perception, I guess, that I'm gonna guess what that means. The board isn't transparent. The GM isn't transparent. We don't communicate enough. We don't, people don't know what's going on, and yet everything's posted online. You got YouTube channels. You can get involved with any meeting. I mean, so transparency in my mind was this perception that we're not transparent, but yet I think we've taken, and maybe there's things behind the scenes I don't know about, but I would say I don't think it's an issue at all, but I'm more involved than the average person.
Well, the feedback that the board gets on this is, I think your point is well taken, that everything is out there for consumption and people are not consuming it. So they're believing that they're not getting, that information is not available. And then the second bit of feedback is when we have closed meetings, that we're doing things secretly that we shouldn't be doing. And yet we have a process by which we communicate to the public what the law tells us we must speak about in closed session, not open session.
Yeah.
And people don't like that. So
Thank you.
I
Becky?
think your question is a good one, Becky.
All county governments, no matter where we are, have open, no matter where you are, have open and closed session. So and that's not an unusual issue, or that's something understood. I don't really know what happened in Ocean Pines years ago. Many of you have been here a long time. You understand what has occurred over the years in terms of the budgeting and the finances and and I feel that there's a lack of trust. So when I talk to many older members that know the history of what happened here, and I don't know it, there's a lack of trust with the people that are running the community. Whereas I say, I don't know, I really don't know, what you're talking about. I'm very happy with. So when I look at that word transparency, that makes me think, oh, there's something's hidden, something happened, something. And when I look at this, please rate the urgency. This, as a new person, this question to me says there's problems here.
Mm-hmm. I agree with that.
And that's what,
I would want bullets put into a positive framework. Like I would say Ocean Pines open communication among committees, and I would include the residents in here so that it's not coming from that. Obviously there were problems from the top down, and I'm looking at this from a resident sitting in my home, and I'm thinking, oh, there's a problem here. There's board of directors turnover. There's aging infrastructure. People aren't working closely together. Something's hit, so it's maybe and I'm seeing urgency. So I'm thinking, that's what I'm thinking as a new person.
Yeah, and Becky, these were all taken off of identified issues or weaknesses in the SWOT analysis. So
I totally
they're all negatives. But I take a step back and look at this and say transparency is the only one that's really a value here. You know, the other ones are more specific. Maybe transparency shouldn't be in here. It's more, it could be an agreement statement below, but I'm not married to anything other than transparency is the one that's,
But the urgency word that Becky
Yeah.
was talking, you know?
help me out with that. I don't, you know,
Yeah,
again, I'm not
you know,
married to any of this. I
It's
just, I
very
want to get
urgent.
the
It's
right
very
thing done.
urgent for us to look into transparency. Why?
Yeah, where
You
does
know.
that come from? Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
why?
Becky raises a good
Yeah.
point about what a
I'm just saying,
communication.
it's kind of like, wow, you know, I mean,
Yes.
I would say, please rate the following Ocean Pines challenges that need to be addressed on a scale of 1 to 5, blah, blah, blah. I would take out aging. I would just say infrastructure, take out the issues from the top and put down an A, infrastructure issues, including drainage. And I would put another one rather than et cetera. I would take et cetera out. Then I'd go to B and I would just say, and I'm not the one to really speak to this, but that's where I'd put the board of directors and Ocean Pines leadership working collaboratively in B.
It's just going to be board of directors working collaboratively.
I agree,
Yeah.
because board of directors turnover, I was thinking,
That's,
I mean,
that's,
does that mean
that's
every 3
built
years
into-
or dropping off and coming
yeah,
back
and that's
in?
built into our governing documents that it's every 3 years. And I think what people have been concerned about, I think your point is well taken, Becky, about board of directors working collaboratively with the general manager, not leadership, because our single employee is the manager.
Okay.
And board of directors turnover has been communicated to us as a problem in terms of lack of continuity of leadership. And what, you know, this board has tried to do, the 4 years I've been on the board, what we've worked toward is kind of business-like professional approach to making decisions, memorializing processes and procedures so that there's consistency rather than, you know, whenever new directors come on, everything gets turned upside down.
So I
don't
really
know
like,
capture that.
I really like those words that you used because you use consistency. So those
Consistency of leadership, I guess, yeah.
yeah. So you want to do board of directors and Ocean Pine general manager working collaboratively, and then you want to do board of directors continuity and consistency. Is that what you want to do? Because I know there were a lot of people that left, and I know there were a lot of people that left over controversies, and I know that there were people that naturally left, but
Right.
that happens everywhere.
So for the sake of time, I just want to point out that the number one issue by far of the Ocean Pine employees was labeled as board of directors turnover / politics. That's what their wording was. Because they get new board members in that want to go in a different direction every year, and it drives them nuts. They're not
So
sure.
consistency
And so
is,
as long as we capture that, I'm okay.
yeah.
So board of directors.
That's really lack of strategical objectives.
It
and
is.
driving where we're going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so I think that, Becky, you may be correct that problem may be addressed, but not solved, but addressed by having a strategic plan. We can't change you're right, Becky, it happens every place. We can't change the turnover, but what we can change is board of directors working on being more collaborative in the way they work with each other and with the GM. Those are things that we could have initiatives to address. But we can't change the fact that we have 2 new directors or 3 new directors every year, depending upon the year, because that's built into our governing documents.
Devil's advocate is you could change that government document.
We could.
If the community says that's a huge
Yes.
issue, a turnover,
Yes,
change it that the board has 5-year terms or something.
yeah.
to-
But
or
I think
something
that
like
Becky's point is well taken, that it's not just the turnover, it's the manner in which the board works.
Yeah, so I'm gonna
Yes.
change it to board of directors, continuity, consistency, okay? Yep, and not turnover. I'm gonna change the first one to infrastructure issue, including drainage. Give me another example. If I say IT,
Roads.
nobody's gonna support it. What?
Do you want to add your bulkheads in there?
You
Yeah,
could
that's
just
a good
say
one.
maintenance.
Yeah, maintenance. Mhm.
Bulkheads or maintenance?
No, infrastructure maintenance, including drainage, bulkheads,
I agree with
roads.
Got
I
it.
think that's what Josh meant.
I'm gonna take out transparency. Was that the overall consensus?
Yes.
That's
I was
covered in
going to
guidance.
suggest, do you want to combine that with communications, something like transparency of Ocean Pines communications, or do you like it like that?
I like Ocean Pines transparent and open communication.
I mean, you could either strike E or you could combine E and F.
This is a very difficult question. I'm looking at some of these. Do we need this question?
It really was me going through and saying, like, the first one's positives, like,
Because
what
it
do
is
you
difficult
like
for us to figure out.
this? This one is, what are the biggest issues facing Ocean Pines that we need to figure out? Like, this is a negative question. What are the things that prevent us from being successful? You
I
know,
have an idea.
or budgeting, this doesn't include adding amenities or improving lifestyle. This is like the environmental committee. I read something that Ocean Pines is 1/3 water. In our 9 square miles.
It might be with all the canals.
So like, what are we doing? I mean, the environmental committee is really hot on, what are we doing? And location is our number one thing. What are we doing environmentally? Should we do, I know the environment, John Wolf is advocating for more board involvement with that, but that's why that's in there. And that was rated pretty high, but it was impacted by, John and his committee. I don't know. I mean, do we need it? Maybe when we
No,
plan this.
I think that's a really good statement about looking at these in terms of combining them for strategic objectives. So if you use communication, transparency, and you spin that some way to align that with an objective that would be supporting digital and electronic communication, that would be really interesting. And I like your environmental comment about preserving, as we go into the future. I think I wrote some of them down in that email, Bernie, to you. Strategic initiatives that support.
Well, I didn't include that because we don't have, you said,
Right.
Would you be willing to support an increase, to support strategic initiatives? Well, nobody knows what the strategic initiatives are, so that's the only reason I didn't include that. But doing things like, giving an example, but,
Yeah, Bernie, just to give you some more feedback, one of the things that I've been observing with the current leadership is GM and board supported leadership, support of the GM, is that when complaints come in and problems, kind of repeatedly show up on his desk, he has done some things. He created a customer service team and a customer service access point. He created a method of responding to, getting the quickest, most efficient response to homeowners. And so, I think I think this is a good question. because I think it will give us information about where do we need to beef up our initiatives and or spending
Yeah,
to address some of this stuff.
Yeah.
So I don't think you want to drop it off.
okay.
If it's, and I don't think you want to give up on it because it's hard.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
probably your hardest question that you're going to have to come up with good wording for. And you may not be able to do it in the 9 minutes you
Yeah.
have left in your meeting. But I think it's really a critical question to help us,
Yeah.
know where we need to take things.
Becky, if you don't mind, could I ask you just to sort of work on this one question with me maybe?
Sure.
And come up with some better wording. I wrote down a lot of the stuff we have now. And we're probably not gonna get through this whole survey today. I think the last 3 or 4 questions are pretty straightforward. But let's jump to the next one for now, 7. Wes, you okay? You still there?
Yep, still here.
This one, it's important when you do research not to have loaded questions. Like, don't you think Ocean Pines, amenities are the best ever? Well, it's like, you're sort of leading, it's called a loaded question, that you're suggesting something. But this type of question gives you permission to sort of get agreement on, I'll call them value statements or things like that. I threw in the kitchen sink here. They'll be randomized. There's probably some things that shouldn't be in here. But take a look at them and tell me what we should take out or add to. These were, again, a lot of these were taken off of opportunities, okay? And the opportunities weren't listed as wording, but, new amenities might have been a headline. Improve current amenities was a headline.
Yeah, L is interesting, that one, because you're talking about investing in new things, but you can't do that if you stick to cost of living increases.
Right.
So it's this is the kitchen sink.
Yeah, one of it is, you might get, I'm willing to invest in infrastructure, but not amenities.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
Well, if that's a conclusion, but yet people want to limited, you're gonna get a lot of people that don't want increases.
Yeah.
You can't have both.
But then what you're left is, when you look at the results.
Yeah,
Communication becomes public communication.
important,
becomes very
absolutely. You're gonna really have to sell this hard. You're gonna have to communicate.
Well,
really have to talk about the values,
What
yes.
they're asking for.
Yes.
And the conflicts.
Yeah.
That are in that. And, I think people understand that and that
Yeah.
could resonate.
Another way I'll say it is anytime we did it, Rob, any type of question we ever did on pricing, how do you feel our prices are? Nobody's gonna say too low.
Yeah.
Nobody's gonna
You're
say,
perfect.
take a price increase.
Yeah.
And importantly, one of the first questions, they said HOA fees for the value for the money. Now, that's a different question. Do you feel it's fair? And that's a different way of getting at, a better question, but.
Yeah, we don't have that one in there. That was one of the ones that I was gonna suggest that we add. It was value for the money of the HOA. I don't see that in the list of questions.
Go ahead, Rob. I'm gonna put that down.
Question D.
It is in question number 3.
Yeah,
HOA assessment value for the money.
yeah. It's rated as important in how we're doing in number 3.
Okay.
Rob?
Question D, the board of directors has my best interest.
Yeah, I didn't.
What?
I
Has my best interest.
probably spent 15 minutes on the wording on this and I didn't come up with anything that great. And it doesn't have to be in there.
Acts in my best interest.
I would take that out.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we need that. Yeah,
That's a value statement, and I think
Yeah. Trust me, you guys all complimented me for the work that I did, and it was really looking at opportunities, issues, and trying to incorporate it into the survey. So it's gone.
Scratch it.
I think there's some cost saving things in here too, like people really support electronic voting. I mean, there might be some investment in software, but man, I mean, how much, does that help the bottom line more to be able to afford some
I'll
things?
support it now.
Helen wanted to take it out, would you email me back or something like that on? We'd go back and forth.
I got confused. I kept saying, I didn't understand, I got confused. I didn't understand what N was then. I support a referendum for improved enforcement of covenants and regulations. Does that mean?
What that means is that our declarations of restrictions don't give us the authority to have teeth in immediate enforcement, basically.
I mean, but that's what we're doing now. The board is doing that now, correct? On the short-term rental, is that?
Well, on some issues.
That's one issue.
Really on noise and litter and short-term rentals. But there are other things that are declarations of restrictions that are hard, like keeping your property
Right.
looking nice,
Yeah.
beyond, keeping,
So this was in the last survey. Jenny, who's not here, looked at the last survey and gave me recommendations what to include from the last survey. This was one of them. Is the wording correct on that? I support a referendum. On N, do I have that wording correctly? Is that?
Yeah, that's.
Yeah, just like that. So that's why it's in there, okay? This is the kitchen sink. I'm gonna, just for the sake of time, and I like to begin meetings on time. Sorry about the technical issues today, and end them on time. If you have any other input, please let me know, within the next week. I actually asked the board last night to have, and the community by any input within a week. The next.
So are you gonna send this, you're not gonna send this out for input? You want me to send it to the board for input?
I'll go back and revise this in the next day with what we come up with today.
Okay,
And then you can send that version if you want.
okay.
By tomorrow, I'll have it done. If not today. And we're gonna continue to work on this. Number 8, this really gets into customer satisfaction of individual amenities, or individual things that are going on. And it could identify, it's kind of interesting. You look at Google reviews of some of our amenities and some are higher than others. It's kind of interesting that some people do that, more for the golf course and people that use things a lot. But this is really just meant to give you a benchmark for customer satisfaction. I think we had some good input on this. I guess for now we'll leave it in if that's okay with everybody. If it gets to a timing thing where it's taking too long to fill out the survey, we might eliminate this question. Okay, because we asked customer satisfaction in the second question, and we asked net promoter score in one of the last questions. Would you recommend to a friend? So we get overall customer satisfaction, which would be good benchmarks. This gets into individual satisfaction of different things. And for whatever reason, I included it in there. I mean, it's almost like there's like 3 different types of surveys going on in here, sort of gap analysis, customer satisfaction, and values. And anyway, the next one, again, is a little bit of a kitchen sink. It was captured from anything that might have been shown up as opportunities, again, with employees, et cetera. And some of them cost some money, some of them don't. Is the word, any thoughts on this? I just feel bad we're running out of time. I mean, you had one chance to look at it. There was a couple, Josh, you did some really good input on the amenities. I think you had a couple here as well. I think there was some discussion about, do we do shuttles to local shopping? And you think about, yeah, the board's not gonna do anything to do a shuttle with local shopping. But maybe you have a committee that, like the Villages does, that helps community members, provide service to them. And Meals on Wheels kind of does that, but
And
maybe
there are
they're,
opportunities, my husband does that.
yeah, I mean, so there's,
there are opportunities.
yeah.
It's just the communication, going back with what Becky had said before about health and communicating
Yeah.
services to the community.
So I mean, I think you have to, there's some things that, yeah, maybe it's like, hey, we make a recommendation. You have committees that focus on beautification of the community, helping, community members, et cetera.
So I want to ask about F. Updated Beach Club. That's on our radar for, that's a maintenance issue.
Yeah.
And so I'm not sure that, that's going to happen. So I don't know that it needs to be here as something.
What if nobody's interested in it?
Yeah.
It's a
So why would we want to take
I
it?
can't
it's an
imagine it
asset
wouldn't
that
be.
we own, so we're responsible for maintaining it.
Yeah, and this would help to understand if nobody's interested in it, you have a really good sell job to do when you have to do it, or communication job, but
Okay.
I will tell you, it's interesting, when I go to all these other amenities, like the golf club, the yacht club, and then I go to the beach club, it's like, wow, this needs some investment, but it's still a great location, great
Yeah.
place. I start to think about, what if they fix that upstairs, what about beach weddings, how much money could they make on this, so my mind is always working.
Right.
Again, this is another one, you have another week to give some thoughts to. I want to get to the last couple questions. The biggest one is, there's some rules and regulations about the gender question, about how you should word that. And it's really about what gender do you currently associate with? I think that's the proper way to say it. And you have to say female, male, I associate with the male gender, I associate with the female gender.
I'm non-binary or whatever.
Yeah, and there's like 6 or 7 different things. I kept it simple. I think Becky made a good point. I think last time it was 50-50 male, female, it was pretty split. Where you might have some differences there. I'm not gonna influence the vote here, but the question is, do we keep it or not? All those in favor, say aye.
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 2,
Aye.
3. 1, 2, how many are on here? Committee members? 2,
You have 6 people
6
here.
people? What's the rules? We'll keep it, okay? We'll make an executive decision. It only takes a second to answer.
Yeah, thank you.
But I'm gonna wrap up the meeting. So the next thing we need to talk about is, communicating the survey and how we're gonna do that. And Josh, I'm gonna need your involvement. Is there anybody else that would like to be involved with that? Because I think we'll have a meeting maybe next week. I might do it via Zoom just to eliminate the technical issues, but talk about hard copies, where to put them and all that stuff, and make sure we're covered there.
Bernie, I'm sorry, as I'm making notes, I missed that. What is it that you exactly want?
We didn't get to the second part, which is communicating the survey. So, it's gonna be done July 28th. Or say July 30th. Our survey is gonna be ready to go. That's when we're gonna have all the input from everybody. We're gonna revise this. We could release it anytime after that. I'm gonna, give it another week or so. The next step will be to test it. So we'll send the links out to this committee. We might ask you to send it to a family member or friend that has nothing, but that they would fill it out to give some feedback. One, we want to test timing. Okay, how long does it take to finish this and complete it? 2, we want to get this, like, I don't understand what they're asking here. We want a little bit of that because we're close to it. We've been involved with it. We just want to make sure the wording's simple. So that's the reason to test it. You want to get 10 or 20 responses before you release it and get 2,000, whatever. So,
Are you going to test it using SurveyMonkey?
yeah, you'll be right on SurveyMonkey. You'll get 20 answers and, it's awesome. But from communication standpoint, anybody want to be involved with that, care to be involved with it, no pressure, besides Josh.
Yeah, I'll sit in on that if you want to.
So Rob, Mo,
When are you thinking of doing it?
probably next week sometime.
Okay, I mean, as long as I'm available.
Yeah, I'll send a note out and try to get some times, or I wish I could say when I'm available next week, but I know I'm away for 2 days and we have company coming when I get back. So we'll figure something out.
And I'll be up north a couple days next week, so.
Is Thursday or Friday better, or? But otherwise, any other comments or questions? But that's the next thing, is to work out, hammer out the details of distribution. And, I think we're gonna be able to get this out there by August 15th, which will be great to get at some, amenities and things like that. I will tell you that Josh and I talked briefly about, and I actually, when I was at polls, I was asking people that work there about handing out cards, which would be very inexpensive to print, but instead of, say you go to a poll, a Mumford's Landing poll, and where the person would say, hey, we have this survey here that we're trying to complete, and the whole, how do you communicate to them, how do you educate them, what do they say, there's that piece to be worked out. But it's also like, well, I don't want to fill these out, I'm watching my kids here. Well, here's a card just to remind you when you get home, here's a link, please fill out the survey. So we thought that might be a way, and actually talking to some of the people that work there, they thought that would be better too, that they, versus having people fill them out at the pool there.
So you just give them a card with the link.
Yeah.
Pretty good
Good
weather.
idea.
Yeah, like please fill out, your opinion matters, please fill out the survey, something like that.
Yeah. Thursday or Friday morning.
Okay, that could work for me too. Okay, so we'll do Rob, Mo, myself, and I'll probably try to get Jenny involved. She's pretty good from the communications standpoint. Any other comments, questions, whatever? Again, this was a tough meeting. It was, Becky, thanks for joining. It was a little bit more, well, it's still a work, I think all our meetings have been pretty good from a working standpoint. This was more harder, I guess, or something. A little bit less formal and a little bit more tedious to go through, but I think
But
important.
necessary.
But necessary, exactly. Yeah. Gotta do it. Cool.
Do you think we should have one more to look at it, or just one more? I think it'd be better just to send it out one more time and get final input from this committee. versus having
Send
another
it.
I
meeting.
think so. At
Okay.
this point, yeah.
Okay, cool. Meeting's adjourned. Thank you all.
Thanks.
Thanks very much, Josh.